instead of complaining about it, I like bitched about it and then I did something about it. And I think that for me, writing that was like the moment where I told my soul, I'm gonna do this. And I didn't just
Yeah.
dream it. Then I said, what am I gonna do to become it? I kept on pouring myself into my art, pouring myself into my work. And that's part of this too, is like you get to write down in every area. And there's so many exercises in this book, I Am Worthy, that are gonna show you what is my worthy self desire? What does she move like? What does she sound like? What does she dress like? Who does she allow to be in her body? Who does she allow to be in her space? It really activates these queen codes, these diosa codes, these worthy woman or worthy person, because this book is for everyone. And activating those codes in our body allow us to be like, oh, I am worthy of that. And so we must be delusional. We must be crazy dreamers. We must be wild. We must not think that our current reality is where we exist. If it was the case, I wouldn't make the money that I make.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. What if I told you that the biggest block to your success isn't your resume, your relationship status, or your bank account? It's the spell of unworthiness that you've been living under your entire life. In today's episode, we're joined by the incredible Christine Gutierrez, who is a licensed therapist, a spiritual guide, and a best-selling author of the book a lot of us may know, I Am Diosa, as well as her new book, I Am Worthy. And we're breaking down how unworthiness is not your fault. It's a generational spell that's been passed down through silence, sacrifice, as well as survival. But you can break it. So if you've ever felt like you had to shrink to fit in, overperform to be loved, or earned your way into rest, then this episode is your permission slip to remember that you were born worthy. Christine shares how her Puerto Rican roots, her spiritual initiations, and her own healing from addiction have led her to a life of liberation, of motherhood, divine love, and unapologetic abundance. We also talk about what it means to download codes of worthiness, as well as reclaim cultural confidence, why being Delulu is actually something that is divine, and how your desire is proof that you are ready for more. This isn't your average self-help talk. This is a spiritual homecoming, and the conversation was so good. So grab your cafecito, open your heart, and get ready to unearth the truth that's been waiting for you all along, because once a chingona remembers her worth, there is no going back. Let's get into the episode. Christine, welcome to Chingona Revolution podcast. How are you?
I am so alive and happy and grateful.
I am so excited to speak to you. I feel like we have so many things to cover today, but you recently, or you're about to, release a book that I think is literally the core thing that people are looking to find in their lifetime, right? Like whatever struggles they're going through at the core, it has to do with wanting to feel worthy.
Absolutely.
And you described unworthiness as a spell, and it's something that needs to be broken. So can you tell me, when was the moment that you realized you'd been living under that spell, or maybe people that you've worked with were living under that spell?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this book. I Am Worthy. Break the spell of unworthiness, reclaim your divinity, and unearth your true power. It's my next book baby after I Am Diosa. And for me, I remember people asking me, like, what's the core of your work? I've been doing this work now for over 17 years. My background is as a clinical licensed mental health therapist. And really what I consider myself more of is a spiritual mentor and a guide. And when people would ask me, what's the core of your work? It would always come back to helping people remember that they are worthy. And both in my own life as my journey, growing up in Bushwick and Ridgewood and Queens and New York and witnessing both love and abuse and having to untangle the webs of those generational wounds and having to reclaim the generational gifts and being able to really say, despite this, I am worthy. And the first wound, right, is being disconnected from that spiritual place of, whatever you want to call the more. the connection to God, spirit, source, goddess, whatever you want to call it. That's our first wound. When we disconnect, we forget that we are part of this infinite cosmic realm and that we are inherently worthy. And now we have, the understanding that, okay, well, there's a part of me that believes and knows that maybe there's something more. Most people that, follow my work are spiritual people, and they're people that already have the understanding that there's more. But even then, we live a mundane life. We go about our business. We go through shit every day. We have to hustle. We have to, do the things, and we forget. And then our life, and then now add your lifetime initiations that you have to go through, the moments when someone rejects you, when someone's dating and they can't find their person, and they're like, oh, he didn't want to text me back. All of these things are little moments where it makes people, or can make someone, if they have an original injury that reminds them of that rejection, right? Dad left them and now someone is not responding to their text message. I feel unworthy. And a lot of times what happens is people are collecting that evidence of like unworthiness, right? I'm unworthy of having a loving relationship. I'm unworthy of making money. I'm unworthy of living out my dreams. I'm unworthy of having a baby. I'm unworthy of living my authentic self. And a lot of it is, like I said, is a spell. I consider unworthiness, it's spell of unworthiness that clouds us and that literally has us living a lie. In every single chapter in the book, I have unworthy lies and worthiness truths, so that you can look at the fucking lie in the face and be like, F you. I don't believe you. And I'm going to really look at you in the face and say, and question, why do I think this? What are you trying to teach me? What is this about? But I'm not going to live from that place of the lie. I'm going to live from the place of our truth. And so this book and really the body of my work is devoted to helping us call back all the pieces of our soul that have left our bodies and have disconnected us from our core of worthiness.
Oh, that was so good. And you're so right with, the person maybe not texting you back, and it activates this core wound. And sometimes people don't even recognize it at first, that there's this unworthiness wound. But this is why maybe a rejection from a job, or maybe somebody not greeting you the way that they greeted somebody else walking into the club or walking into a store, these little things that aren't a big deal can feel so massive. And it's because it's tied to this core wound that you're speaking of.
Absolutely.
So I think what's beautiful is that you've blended this like ancient wisdom with your clinical work, right? With your clinical psychology and within your work. So I'm curious, how do your Puerto Rican roots kind of shape this healing path for you?
Yeah, I'm Nuyorican. I consider myself Nuyorican. I have Boricua roots. My parents from both sides. My mom's side, her mom was from San Sebastian. Her dad was from San Germán. From my dad's side, his dad was from Isabela, and my grandma was from Las Marias. And in 2011, I was experiencing some weird like health sensations in my hands and stuff. And I was just graduating from my master's in mental health counseling, and I heard a voice that said, if you go to Puerto Rico and you go to the sunshine, it will go away. I was doing all these tests and all these things, and nothing was showing up. And in 2011, I came to Puerto Rico alone. My parents had never lived here, so I'm third generation. My grandparents had lived here. We all grew up in New York. My mom grew up in the projects in the Bronx. My dad grew up in the hood in Brooklyn. And I was like, I'm going to go back, my roots, really feeling the land calling me and feeling the pull to return home to the root, and knowing that that was going to be a deep part of my medicine. I then met with this woman, the 13 indigenous grandmothers, Grandmother Flor de Mayo. And Grandma Flor de Mayo was doing this event at Donna Karen. And at the time, I was volunteering there, opening the door, super low key. And I remember not knowing and noticing that Grandmother Flor de Mayo was one of the 13 indigenous grandmothers that was going to do this big event there at Donna Karen's place at Urban Zen. And I was like, oh my God, you're so cute. Very typical, very me. And she was like, you're so cute. And we started joking, didn't know who the F she was. I didn't notice her face. Later on, I see her doing like this water blessing in front of like, hundreds and hundreds of people. I was like, oh my God, I just told the indigenous grandma that she's so cute. And I didn't know she was like, performing this thing. She comes out of the event. I'm still holding the door open. And she comes up to me and she says, you're going to move soon and you're going to teach about La Diosa. And she knew. And I
Wow.
told her I'm already teaching about the goddess La Diosa. At the time, I hadn't fully integrated the word diosa, but I was starting to use it. My first retreat over 15 years ago, the first one was called the Goddess Retreat. And then I owned and said, this is the Diosa Retreat. So this coming, if you're listening to this in 2025, the next retreat in 2026 is the 15th annual Diosa Retreat. So my roots and the coming home, both as a New Yorican woman and that identity, which is very different than being Boricua born and raised here, and my identity as a Latina woman and a Boricua woman all impact me in a very deep way because it's one of the biggest lens that I use, my culture. And I speak about this a lot and reclaiming my cultural confidence. We have so much medicine in our roots. Latina authors are less than 7% of the population. I'm part of that 7%, especially mainstream
Mhm.
book deal with a six-figure book deal. That is even lower, maybe 1%. And it is a big part when you see that you feel unworthy. Because if you don't see people representing you that sound like you, that look like you, you're like, oh, well, fuck it, I'm not worthy. I must not be worthy. My voice is not worthy. My medicine is not worthy. I'm not worthy of being paid. I'm not worthy of sharing my voice. And so, in me coming back here and really owning, wow, I'm so proud to be me. And part of me is this cultural piece. I got to really sit with what is the medicine that I learned from my grandmother, analyzing my dreams, intuition, plants in the home, using them to heal us, community, cafecito, talking, having these deep conversations. And so all of that influences and is a big part of the fuel of my work. And as
Mhm.
you know, most of my work is geared toward Latina women and women of color. And
Yep.
so I work with all women, but I make a specific focus on creating and facilitating spaces that are geared toward Latina women, women of color, and immigrant women.
Beautiful. So when you said that the grandmother said that you're going to teach about La Diosa, I literally got chills all over my body as you said that. And what stood out to me about that is, sometimes we go to events and we can be like really hesitant or we only want to talk to the people that we think have status. But what I think is so beautiful about that synchronicity is that you had no idea who this person was and you were just genuinely being yourself. You were being as authentic as possible, and it ended up being like this divine connection and this synchronicity. And that's what happens when we live our lives in alignment. And what a beautiful journey. That, I mean, you were already on the journey, but it was like the confirmation that you were on the correct journey.
Yeah. And, I remember walking in at the time. I remember going to bookstores and searching through, and there was nobody there that was like a Latina mainstream
Mhm.
spiritual author. There was Sandra Guzman who had wrote the New Latinas Bible, but it wasn't quite spiritual personal development. There was Don Miguel Ruiz, but he was already an older man.
Right.
And then there was Iyanla Van Zant, who I've had the pleasure of working with and studying with her in person. And of course, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who is and has Mexican roots, but was raised and adopted by Hungarian parents. But she was, again, already in her 60s at the time. So there
Mhm.
was no new voice
Mhm.
for the Latina generation. And I remember walking in, I remember getting Gabrielle Bernstein's book and crossing out into the book, and I put like a working title in her book, and I put by Christine Gutierrez. And I was like, I will have a six-figure book deal, and I will have my books in Barnes and Nobles, and I will impact thousands and hundreds of thousands of women around the world, and they will know that they can too. Not just because of the impact of the work in the book, but also for me as a template and as an example. And and since then, I've helped so many other Latina women get six-figure book deals because there are codes that we don't have as Latina women from not having witnessed that in our community. I saw people become doctors, maybe de lejito, but mostly were teachers, bus drivers, office assistants. My grandmother worked cleaning houses and factories. So for me to get those codes really enhanced my worthiness. And I was very clear. I was like, I'm going to watch these white girls move, and I will download those codes and I will bring it to my people.
You're
Because
so
we are
right.
worthy of them. We are worthy of them. And we have the medicine, and we have, and oh my God, this is so. I have a high level Madre Legacy Council, which is my high level feminine business mastermind for game changers, women that want to do big things in the world and make a lot of money. And I remember one time looking at the reels of all these white women, and they were putting the most gangster ass music that they didn't even grow up with, which is totally fine. Music is for all of us, okay? I'm not mad at it. But what I noticed was that we weren't, that we weren't. And I said, wait a
Wow.
minute. This is because the colonized belief, and especially for those, which many of my clients are first generation, they have immigrant parents, they're needing to be cookie cutter, change their name, change their accent to assimilate into a culture to be accepted, therefore losing their cultural confidence and feeling worthy in their own skin and their own bones as who they are. And here they are, not feeling comfortable using their accent, not feeling comfortable having their sazon, not feeling comfortable to put music that we grew up with on reels to not seem not professional. And I remember that moment where even music, I was like, I'm worthy of reclaiming the music that I like. I'm worthy of not just hiding that part of me and not sharing it. I'm worthy of being all the multidimensional aspects of myself and putting that online and sharing it with people, but most importantly, claiming that within ourselves. And again, in this book, and I Am Worthy, it unpacks so many different levels, not just of like the inner trauma that you might have experienced on a family level, but the systemic traumas that we see by living in a colonized, racist, world. And to not live angry at that, because I'm not
Mhm.
about that life. I'm about how can we be a bridge to learn what we need to learn and have it because we can do it too. But also recognizing that's real, and so it was so beautiful. I remember one of the girls in the Madre Legacy Council, she ended up putting like a big pun song, and she ended up enrolling like two clients from it, and
Love
we
it.
were so happy because it's like all these tiny moments that are moments of you being like, I am worthy of reclaiming all the parts of me.
Definitely. I had these questions I wanted to make sure I asked you, but you said a few things that I want to touch on. So you said you went to Barnes and Noble, you grabbed a Gabby Bernstein book, put your name on it. So that is, I mean, for the person who maybe isn't in touch with manifestation or spirituality, for them that sounds crazy, right? Like, oh, why can't you just be realistic? Why is it important for us to do things like this and not be realistic and to use what the young kids are using nowadays? Why is it so important to be delulu?
Yeah. We live in a material world, but we also live in a spiritual world. And this is a choice to believe that. If you don't like it, then, tell yourself something that makes you feel inspired to do something. There's many ways to do this. In my opinion, and what works for me is that I believe that we are ruled more by the subconscious in the spiritual world more than anything. And the more we allow ourselves to believe that we are less matter and more energy, the more we can expand our consciousness to go beyond the rules of physics and law, because energy defies time and space, right? We know this
Right.
time is not linear. And so when we do on a subconscious level, what we are doing is we are creating more possibility. When you think about the power of a good teacher that reminds you that there is more for you to dream, that there is more for you to believe in, that gives you self esteem, that gives you self worth, and it allows you the ability to imagine. Imagination is one of our most powerful tools that we can use to move beyond what we're currently experiencing. Use the power of visualization, the power of your word, even in the Bible. In the
Yeah.
beginning, there was word. Word is a spell. Words are spells. They're magic wands that live on your tongue. So you have to use them wisely. And for me, I knew from a young age that we had this power. And I knew that I wanted more than anything to have that book. I loved writing poems. I loved writing. And I loved Gabby's book. She was actually one of the first people that showed me that you could be like this young cool girl, make money, write a book. And I ended up, she just promoted my book I Am Worthy the other day. And I give thanks that, even though we come from very different backgrounds, she was still like this Scorpio woman, kind of rough around the edges, similar to me, an addict like me, recovered, right? Like a sober woman. And so
Mhm.
there were a lot of pieces of her story that I could identify. And there were pieces that I didn't. And in the pieces that they didn't, instead of complaining about it, I like bitched about it and then I did something about it. And I think that for me, writing that was like the moment where I told my soul, I'm gonna do this. And I didn't just
Yeah.
dream it. Then I said, what am I going to do to become it? I kept on pouring myself into my art, pouring myself into my work. And that's part of this too, is like you get to write down in every area. And there's so many exercises in this book, I Am Worthy, that are going to show you what is my worthy self desire? What does she move like? What does she sound like? What does she dress like? Who does she allow to be in her body? Who does she allow to be in her space? It really activates these queen codes, these diosa codes, these worthy woman or worthy person, because this book is for everyone. And activating those codes in our body allow us to be like, oh, I am worthy of that. And so we must be delusional, we must be crazy dreamers, we must be wild, we must not think that our current reality is where we exist. If it was the case, I wouldn't make the money that I make, I would not have the love that I have, I would not have the daughter that I have, I would not have everything that I have, because every next level requires you to be even more delusional, even more
Yep.
outside of reality. And sometimes, like in my case, I had a beautiful partnership and I had an amazing daughter. And I realized, I was like, you know what? This is great, this version of reality. And there's another version of reality that wants even more. And then sometimes you can feel bad because maybe you have a good job or you have a good
Yep.
partner or you have a good thing, but there's a part of your worthy woman's soul self that knows you deserve more. Maybe you're making a certain amount of money and you're like, you feel guilty and shame for desiring more. But if your soul is telling you and it's coming from the right, in the right relationship with your heart and not from this place of ego and control or power and negative stuff, then that's because God planted that in your soul to have it. And I've seen it, right? My life and all the lives of my clients are proof. The more that we stand like in the seat of our soul, crowning ourselves with our worthiness, the more everything in our life changes. You magnetize everything you want. You do. And the things that you don't, because life is life and life be lifing, you know to look at it and say, this has nothing to do with me. And you become the creatrix in solving things in a way that is so deeply in alignment with your spirit that everything turns out for the better. And so this work is for me life saving. I think that if more of us wake up out of the spell, and I typically speak to the women because that's my main demographic, but everyone that's listening to this, the more we wake up out of that spell, the more you love yourself and the more you can't imagine not having the best of the best in every area of your life.
As a woman of color, we're often taught that the only path to success is through hard work. And that's exactly what I did for 7 years when I worked in the tech industry. When something wasn't working, I worked harder. And then I burned out, I pushed, and I hustled. But when I started my business, I tried something different. Yes, I still put in the work, but this time opportunities were coming to me. I was magnetic. And while I didn't know it at the time because I didn't have a name for it, I now know that I was using the magnetic method, which is a blend of neuroscience backed manifestation and aligned business strategy that helps you become a magnet for opportunities. At the time, I didn't have a name for it, but now I know that I was using what I call the magnetic method. It's a blend of neuroscience backed manifestation tools as well as an aligned business strategy that helps you become a magnet for opportunities. It's how I went from having zero clients to landing on the front page of the New York Times, being named a Latina 40 under 40, interviewing Luis Fonsi on TikTok, and having 300 clients to date. It's what my clients are using to manifest speaking engagements, collaborations, media features, securing $70,000 in contracts in a single week, as well as landing a ton of opportunities in just a few months without pitching themselves 24/7. So if you are a mission driven creator or entrepreneur who wants to grow authentically and without the burnout, then join me for my free webinar happening on Monday, September 15th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. It is called the Magnetic CEO Method. It's all about how to use manifestation and neuroscience to 3 times your opportunities without 3 times the effort. Spots are limited. Ensure that you secure your spot now by going to the link down below in the show notes. I can't wait to see you there. Love that. That was so well said. I had to grab my journal to write it down because you said, I'm going to bitch about it, then do something about it. And I love that because it means your feelings are valid. Yes, life can feel unfair, but what do you want to do then? And I think sometimes our community can stay in the like, oh, this is unfair, but then don't do anything about it. And it's like, well, now you're just going to stay in the same place. Or if we look at the way that law of attraction works, right, you're just creating more of what you're focusing on. And if you stay focused on what's not working and what's not fair, instead of deciding to change it, then you're just going to keep creating more of the same. And you also talked a few times about codes. I know what you mean about codes, but and my podcast is, I feel like my listeners are pretty spiritual, at least beginner intermediate level. But can you explain what you mean by codes?
Yeah. I believe that they're energetic codes that we get. And it's kind of, you can think of it like an imprint of something that you need to learn. So, for example, when you go to school and you are, you're learning about, I don't know, about psychology, right? And you are in class and your teacher's explaining, okay, well, today we're going to learn about how to be a good therapist. And they're breaking down all the ways that you could be a good therapist. You're downloading the code from this person who's already a therapist, this imprinting of what does it look like and feel like to be a good therapist. It's like a model of a person
Mm-hmm.
that already embodies that thing that you want, right? Now, when I went to school and I saw therapists that were fantastic, I was around their energy and I was around their teachings, and I was able to say, oh, I want those codes. I want that imprinting. I want to know how to be a good therapist like that. So let me learn from you. Let me figure out that. And being in that frequency allows you to learn, right? And we know now that on a scientific level, we co harmonize and we regulate with others. So if we are breathing and we are, calm in our bodies, or if we are excited, or if we are sad, someone else in the room can feel that frequency, and those frequencies impact our energetic field. That's why it's so important to be mindful of our energy and to also be mindful of who we have around us. Me, as a mama of a beautiful 4-year-old girl and a stepmama of a 3-year-old, I I'm so mindful of my energy. I'm always being mindful of my energy. My daughter has never heard screaming. She doesn't know what that is. Like she's just growing up with love. Tension, yeah, maybe because it's life. Feelings, of
Mm-hmm.
course. And I model how to be frustrated and how to have feelings, but yelling and all of that stuff that I grew up with, she doesn't grow up with. So what does
Mm-hmm.
that happen? She downloads the codes of a well-rested woman. My daughter told me something the other day. She just turned 4. She's very smart though. And she said, Mama, when I'm bigger, I don't want to work a lot like you. I want one day work, one day no work. One day work, one day no work. And I
I
was like,
love it.
I'm modeling rest.
Yeah.
And she said to me, Mama, you don't work a lot like the other mamas do. I like that because you get to play with me a lot. She is understanding the codes of a well rested woman, of a woman that's lit up by her desire. She sees me teaching. My daughter leads meditations. And again, that's what it means to have these codes. And so for me, when I talk about this code of worthiness, it's like reminding ourselves, it's like that queen energy, it's that diosa, goddess energy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there are layers to this, and there are so many different things that you're peeling back. So you must be gentle and
Mm-hmm.
go at your own pace, because how you treat yourself in this journey matters so much. We are all people. We have stickier areas in our conditioning that we have to unlearn. And it's taken me a really long time to keep upgrading. And some people learn really fast in their 20s. I was not like that. I was still a wreck, drinking, partying, fucking the wrong people. It really took me longer. And I don't want anyone listening to this to judge themselves for where they're at. You are where you are. You did the best you could to be where you are. And now, if you're listening to this, I invite you to expand beyond your reality and really claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, and understand that if you are reading this work and you implement the work, it does work. And it is something so beautiful to be able to know that in your life, you have done the work to be who you really are, and to have a life that reflects that on the outside as well. And just witnessing myself in my journey, and then being able to pass on those tools and those codes, or that frequency, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, to all my clients, and then seeing them be able to be like, oh, now I deserve to do it. It's like we light
Mm-hmm.
the torch for other people. We light
Totally.
them up with that
Yeah.
confidence.
And what's so interesting is, to your point about Like, I think the statement of, oh, I should just be grateful. Yes, we should always be grateful, but sometimes that keeps us small. And there's almost this like fear of success or fear of getting too far
Oh yeah,
ahead. But to your point, when we are allow ourselves to become the most successful version of ourselves, we get to light the torch for the people that come behind us, right? So it's never like, we're all so much more connected than we realize. It's never about just you getting ahead, especially if you're a woman of color, right?
that's right.
Research shows that we pay it forward. We keep helping people.
That's
We
it.
give back to the community more than any other group. So this idea of keeping yourself small is actually also keeping your community small.
Absolutely.
So this
And I want
work,
to say something to
go ahead.
that really quick, that what you said is so big, like the fear of success. And now living in Puerto Rico, because in New York, yeah, maybe in my immediate community at first in Bushwick, I witnessed that, like,
Mm-hmm.
but I was surrounded by an energy of success and an energy of like go getter, like that's the energy in New York City overall.
Right.
So you had access to some of that. In Puerto Rico, especially in the community that I am in, the spiritual community, there is a lot of judgment around success and especially around making money doing spiritual work. And I've been judged, I've been critiqued. I've had people that are like, ¿quién ella se cree? Whatever. And I'm like, my mom grew up in the projects, my dad grew up in the hood, and my parents hustled their asses off to get there. Not that I need to prove to anyone. And also, my grandmother cleaning bathrooms and taking care of people's homes and working in factories. I'm good. I want ease, I want rest, I want abundance, I want wealth. If that makes you
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, bless your heart. I understand why. Because people have come to Puerto Rico, have colonized, have taken, have stolen lands. There's reasons in which people feel this way. And also, you want to live off the grid? How the fuck are you going to buy that land? ¿Tú tienes un tío que te lo va a regalar? No, you have to pay for it with money, bro. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, the currency that we still use is money. And when you have children that need to eat healthy food and go to a good school and all of that stuff, abundance is what sets you free. For me, what I've noticed is that, and I've had this beautiful opportunity. So many people that get triggered then come to me. They're like, oh my God, I'm so inspired. I love you. I want to do this because in the end, we know that we just want the best. And we always give back. And we give back even when we don't have. And it's still so hard because even when you make a lot of money, then you have a lot more expenses. So now,
Yeah. Running a business is not free,
no,
right? Running a business is not free.
no, because now when I tell people, like my energetic minimum is 50 to 100K, that is what feels right for me. And I cannot because I am literally negative. Like still in my business years later, paying for so many venues and all these things, that's really real. And I don't have a rich uncle or aunt or parents to like help fund me. I fund it. I don't have investors for this because I don't want them. And so this is part of also really understanding. First of all, success means being in alignment with your soul.
Mm,
Anybody that is in alignment with their soul is successful. Success will look very different for everyone. No one can compare or have external yardsticks for what success looks like. My success happens to include freedom with my daughter, having a romantic partnership that like sets me on fire. I've always wanted that. Like for me, number one was always mom, family. Like to me, I said I'll give it all up for those two things. I want love
mm-hmm.
and I want my baby. And the rest is a bonus. And then my doing my work in the world, serving my impact, right? Now, having money then became part of that because I realized that it set me free in so many ways. But that's not everyone's dharma or their mission. Now, many of you listening to you are women that do want that. I know that. And it's okay to want that. I want everyone, especially if you're a Latina woman, woman of color, to really claim that we do really good things and there are other people that are taking up the space and we're still at the lowest for with indigenous people for how we get paid, and we really need to change that. We really need to change that. And I think that the world is going to be much more free and in many deep political levels and ways too when we have more women of color that are in their mature feminine in power.
Definitely.
um,
Yeah.
we care about things and we have a deeper relationship to pain in a way that other people don't, and I
Yep.
trust us deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even, you talked about the spiritual community kind of like having thoughts about success. But if you read the Bible, if you read a spiritual book, it clearly says like source doesn't want us to suffer.
No,
And to your point, like money is just the energy exchange. That's it. Like we still use, yeah, whether it's digital money or physical money, but it's really like if we think back to before we had physical money, they would use produce or fish, and like that was still an exchange of
absolutely.
energy for services. And if you do believe in a higher power, which I think everybody who listens to this podcast believes in something, right? Whether it's Mother Earth or Source or the universe or God, whatever word it is that they want to use, that wants to give us everything. But it's
Everything.
just about, are we willing to receive it? Which is why I think your book is so important, right? Like,
Yes,
how do we feel worthy enough to receive it? And a lot of times that itself is the block, which leads me to my next question, because I know we're getting towards the end. We both serve a community of women, mostly women of color, mostly
yes.
Latinas. And there has been maybe an unhelpful code that we have inherited, which is that we need to work really hard in order to be
Hmm.
successful and to be worthy. And
Yes,
almost like we need to perform. But
absolutely.
according to you and the truth that I also know, it's that we are inherently worthy. So, what would you
Absolutely.
say to the woman of color, to the Latina who feels like, oh, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and then I'm worthy of love? I need to lose weight and then I can find my partner. I need to go get another certification and then I can ask for the raise. I need to do X, Y, and Z, and then I can do this other thing.
Yeah. First, I know that it is a remembering, right? Like this work is remembering, like remembering I am worthy. I was born worthy. If you want to use more biblical language, like God crowns me, right? Like I'm the daughter of the Most High. I am crowned, and I have jewels that already chose me from birth, right? If you want to use language that's like I am part of the great mother, the great she, right? Women that hold the energy of birthing, whether you choose to birth children or not, you hold that in your womb, and we're the closest to creation that it gets. When you understand that, um, you must sit in that, and you must meditate in that energy first, and you must really dwell there for a bit and really sit in that field of like, I'm part of something bigger. Then you start doing the work, and this book literally guides you from start to finish in every single area: fun, pleasure, abundance, rest. It really breaks it down and gives you charts and all the things, soul purpose, community, love. So you're going to be able to have this homework to really dive into: what have I downloaded, the beliefs that are untrue, and how can I start to do this work to really peel back to what I know I deserve, right? And then once you start to do the work, that you start realizing it is not something external that gives you it. Once you claim it for yourself, then you can say whether you want something or not. So one good example is, a lot of times people will be like, and I don't like this theory of like the law of attraction, and like it's like simplistic terms. I like really like detailed nuance with this because I think it needs it. You don't just attract who you are. The light attracts everything. The light attracts the moths. When you are a powerful light worker, you will
Mm-hmm.
attract really broken, wounded people looking to steal your light because they are dark. They are in pain. And people that are light workers, which many of us are, come with a lot of light and a lot of magnetism. And the sick and the wounded and everyone's going to come want the light. Everyone wants the light. And that's a beautiful thing. However, without boundaries, without knowing, and with bad spiritual self-help jargon that you don't really understand, you'll be like, oh no, I must have done something to attract the same. No, sometimes it's just that you need to realize, oh, I don't want this. But in order to do that, you must know you don't just attract who you are, you attract everything. And also, are you solid enough in your worthiness to say, "Mm, this doesn't smell good?" I always tell people to activate the senses of like the smell and the taste. And it's like, does this person taste healthy? Does this person smell like someone that is honoring my intuition? Does this, opportunity, does this thing, does it vibrate with my most worthy self? And in the book, I give you prompts and meditations for you to really visualize, what does your worthy woman feel like, look like, walk like, talk like? Who does she allow? Who does she play with? Who does she have friends with? And
Mhm.
that, being in that state, helps you then to say yes and no. It helps you to be very clear. Oh, this isn't about me. You know, oh, this is what I want. And you go through life really, really in an empowered way. And people feel it, and people, they get it. And it's a very loving and also fierce energy. And your boundaries are so intact. And a woman that is full of worth has healthy boundaries that are fluid, but also closed when she needs them to be. And it's powerful. So I know that if you do this work and you give yourself the opportunity, that you will slowly start realizing how much more worthy you are than maybe you've given yourself credit for. And for everyone, there's still a part of us that can use tweaking. You know, for me in success, I noticed that because I have, right? Like, I wrote I am diosa, I wrote I am worthy, I got a
Mhm.
wisdom del alma deck, I have a beautiful daughter, I live in this gorgeous apartment and all these things. And on the inside, I feel happy. The biggest freedom is that I walk the talk. I feel happy. My life is amazing, right? But also, I've gone through a lot of shit to get there. And also, there are still parts of me that I think, well, my life is so good. How dare I want more? There's still that Latina voice in me that says, I'll be a sellout if I get too much. I see
Yeah.
these white women online and I see them posting about all their money and all these things, and I get shy. And I'm like, I want to do that sometimes, but then I get shy because my culture has taught me to be more shy and more. And so all these things that I'm also breaking free from. So giving ourselves a permission to be
Yeah.
raw, to change our identity. Yeah, it's such beautiful work. I'm so excited for everyone. So it's so excited.
Yeah. So tell us, that was beautiful. Tell us where people can get your book.
You can buy my book wherever books are sold, on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target. You can go to my website, christineg.tv / I am worthy book, and you get some beautiful free gifts. And on my Instagram, you can, stay in touch with me. That's where I'm most active, Cosmic Christine. And again, my book is I Am Worthy, Break the Spell of Unworthiness, Reclaim Your Divinity, and Unearth Your True Power.
Beautiful. Well, we will link all of that down below, your social channels, where to get your book, as well as your website. And for those of you listening, there were so many gems dropped in this episode. So take a screenshot of listening to this podcast, tag Christine and myself, because we want to know what your biggest takeaway was. Make sure you go follow her and make sure you get your hands on this incredible book. Christine, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us and dropping codes for the listeners to be able to adopt. And this book sounds like you're really doing your life's work. So congratulations on being a part of that 7%.
Thank you, my love. So grateful.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.